Praise the Lord. Happy Father's Day. Thank you for coming to church. Did you know that the lowest attended Sunday of the year is Memorial Day? The second lowest attended Sunday of the year is Father's Day. So thank you, fathers, for coming and bringing your family to church. Also, I may or may not be in a dunking booth next Sunday. So if you have any built-up aggression toward things that I've done or haven't done, that's a healthy way to release some of that. Maybe, possibly. We're not for sure. But you'll have to show up to see. Are you ready for a word? There we go. So today we're going to be in the third installment of the sermon series that we've entitled Strong Weakness. The premise of this sermon series is that there are certain things that we associate with strength, certain habits, certain tendencies that we associate with strength, but ultimately they turn out not to be a strength. In fact, they turn out to be a weakness. In part one of this sermon series, we talked about Samson's tendency to isolate. And I told you that sometimes doing it yourself, going at it alone, may seem like a strength, but it ultimately becomes a weakness. In part two, we looked at how Samson had a ritualistic connection to God, meaning his connection to God was all about the don'ts. Don't drink this, don't eat this, don't touch this, don't cut this. And because his connection to God was all about checking off the boxes, it became very ritualistic, which led to legalism rather than love. Today we're going to talk about the battles we fight and why we fight them. How many of you feel like you're in a battle right now? You're in a battle for your peace. You're in a battle for your sanity. You're in a battle for your purpose. You're in a battle for your calling. You're in a battle against the enemy. You're in a battle against someone in your environment, someone in your surroundings. How many of you have ever heard the phrase, choose your battles wisely? This phrase operates under the assumption that there will be battles to fight. Regardless of how anti-confrontational you are, regardless of how laid back and chill you are, regardless of how well-mannered you may be, say yes sir and no ma'am, smile with every tooth in your head, but there will still be battles to fight. And the inevitability of battles means that some suffering is unavoidable. Therefore, choosing your battles wisely means deciding who or what you're willing to suffer for. In essence, it means choosing your pain. You can suffer the pain of regret, or you can suffer the pain of discipline. You can experience the pain of poverty, or you can experience the pain of living on a budget. You can experience the pain of exercising and dieting, or you can experience the pain of your health and body breaking down. While pain is often unavoidable, many times we get to choose the pain that we experience. Therefore, choosing your battles wisely means deciding who or what you're willing to suffer for. This sounds simple enough, but it's more complicated than it seems because there's a lot of different factors that you have to consider. It starts with examining your motives. If the battle represents something you want to achieve or attain, if it represents a mountain you want to climb or a goal you want to accomplish, why do you want to achieve or attain that particular thing? Why do you want to excel in that area? Why do you want to be great in that pursuit? If you get what you're after, how will it change you? If you get what you're after, how will it change your life? Will anyone be better off besides you and yours? If tomorrow God answered every prayer that you've been praying, would anybody be better off besides you and yours? Is the investment of time, strength, energy, resources, is the investment actually worth the return that you'll receive in the end? If the battle represents a conflict between you and someone else, is it something that will still matter a year from now? Is it something that you'll even be able to remember a year from now? Is the disagreement more about your feelings or your future? Is it more about your ego or you getting where you're trying to go? Is being right in this moment worth risking the relationship? Another factor to consider when choosing your battles is how much of your predicament is due to projection. Projection is when we project certain feelings and emotions onto a situation or a person. It's when the boss ticks you off and you come home and kick the dog. You're not mad at the dog. You're mad at your boss, but you can't kick your boss, so you kick the dog. And the dog's wondering why you're a jerk. And he doesn't realize that you're a jerk because your boss was a jerk to you. That's projection. How much of your predicament is due to projection? Sometimes our external battles are just a result of our internal issues. Sometimes you fight the battles you fight because of your insecurity, because of your anger, because of your bitterness, because of your resentment, because of your fear, because of your anxiety. Sometimes our external battles are just a result of our internal issues. Sometimes the things we choose to pursue are more about our pride than our purpose. Sometimes it's not that you really need to make any more money, but you have associated a certain level of money with success, and because you want to feel successful, you keep trying to get to that point, that standard that you've set in your own mind. Sometimes we go into debt not because we need a new car, not because we need a new house, but because we want to appear a certain way to the people around us. Sometimes the things we decide to pursue are more about our pride than our purpose. Sometimes there are things that we haven't processed, and we end up projecting them onto our surroundings. Sometimes we have wounds that haven't healed, lacerations that we haven't recovered from, which cause us to lash out toward the people that are closest to us. And they're wondering why we're responding to them the way that we are. And they don't realize that it's not about what they said or did. It's about everything that's been bubbling up inside of us for a long time. I was really stressed out in between the services, and it really didn't have anything to do with any one particular person or thing. I was stressed out because sometimes I don't feel like a great leader. And then that causes me to be more stressed out. And then if I'm not careful, if I don't process it right, I begin to lash out toward the people around me, and they're not really doing anything. So it's about what I got going on inside of me. What I'm saying is sometimes the battles we fight on the outside are just the result of the ones we refuse to fight on the inside. One man said, if we defeat the enemy within, the enemy without can do us no harm. How much of your predicament is due to projection? And honestly, sometimes you're not even the one doing the projecting. Sometimes there are people around you that are projecting emotions towards you that don't have anything to do with you. And you're wondering why they're overreacting, and the reason they're overreacting is because their reaction is not based on the situation at hand. It's based on everything that's taking place inside of them. Hurt people hurt people. Which is why you have to understand that the person attacking you isn't always your adversary. Paul said we wrestle not against flesh and blood. And the reason he had to say that is because it's not always obvious. Sometimes it really seems like we're wrestling against flesh and blood. Sometimes all we can see is the person who hurt us, the person who betrayed us, the person who let us down, the person who keeps running their mouth, the person who's rooting for our downfall. All we can see is them, and we don't realize that there's another force behind the scenes pulling strings, working through that person's words and actions. Another factor to consider when choosing your battles is it's not just about wins and losses. There are some battles that you can undoubtedly win, but you shouldn't fight. You shouldn't fight them because everything's not worth going to war over. Just this week, I felt a little insulted. I felt a little insulted because I felt like there was a person who didn't trust my ability to lead. And I felt some kind of way about that because I've been doing this 14 years, and believe me, I did a lot of stuff wrong, but I've learned how to do it right through doing it wrong. Well, a lot of stuff right anyway. Not everything, but some stuff. And it basically hurt my feelings. You know, I know we're men and we can't say that, but I got my feelings hurt a little bit. I got my feelings hurt a little bit, and I was all upset and frustrated about it. And then God's like, you're only upset because it insulted your pride. So you was about to make that phone call or send that message, and this is not a battle you should fight, because if you fight it, you're just fighting for your pride. That's it. There are some battles that we can win, but we shouldn't fight because everything's not worth going to war over. On the other hand, there are some battles that you may seem destined to lose, but you have to fight them anyway. You have to fight them anyway because some things are worth it no matter what the outcome or how much the cost. The 3 Hebrew boys made up in their mind that their battle was worth it no matter what the outcome, which is why they stood before the king and said, our God is able to deliver us, but we want you to know something. Even if he doesn't, we still will not bow. They made up in their mind that the battle was worth it no matter what the outcome or how much the cost. There are certain times where we have to draw a line in the sand and say, I will not back down. I will not retreat. I will not regress. This is where I take my stand, and I refuse to relent. Obviously, when it comes to choosing your battles, there's a lot to consider. But no matter how extensive the process, you have to do it anyway. You have to do it anyway because one thing we learn from the life of Samson is no one is strong enough to fight every battle. You are a limited resource. You only have so much time, so much strength, so much attention, so much focus, so much energy. Yes, you're strong. But just because you're strong doesn't mean you don't need to be selective. Proverbs chapter 19 verse 11 says, a person's wisdom yields patience, and it is to one's glory to overlook an offense. Imagine that. Sometimes the best way to win is to not fight at all. Yes, you have the right to speak. But what I want to remind you of is you also have the right to remain silent. And sometimes the best investments are those that you never make. Sometimes the greatest victories are the battles you choose not to fight. If you really want to display strength, learn how to have strength under control. Learn how to resist the temptation to fight every battle you have the opportunity to fight. The reason that this is so important for you to understand is because when we fight big battles over small things, it always comes at a high price. For example, number one, it lowers your quality of life. Drama is addictive. Some of you know you've been hooked on it since adolescence. Drama is addictive. That's why some of you used to watch The Real World and Jersey Shore. It's not because those people were talented or skillful. It's because they cultivated conflict and got drunk on drama. And drama is addictive. Even if we're not a part of it, it's like we like to get some popcorn out and watch it unfold all around us. Drama is addictive. So the more you fight the battles you shouldn't, the harder it becomes to walk away from any battle at all. And when the enemy realizes you'll fight every battle, he'll always give you a battle to fight. There'll always be a situation. There'll always be a struggle. There'll always be resistance. There'll always be someone with an attitude. There'll always be someone who has something to say. There'll always be something that sets you off. If the enemy realizes you'll fight every battle, he will always, without fail, give you a battle to fight. Samson never walked away from a fight, no matter how insignificant or irrelevant it was. He once fought over 30 outfits. He once fought over a wardrobe. It's sad to think that it was a wager gone wrong that began this back and forth exchange that led to Samson experiencing marital strain, losing his wife, isolating himself, falling into sin, losing his freedom, losing his vision, and almost missing out on fulfilling his purpose. Samson fought over clothes. He fought over revenge. He fought because his night with a prostitute was interrupted. He fought over lust. And what he walked away with was never worth what he went through, because when you play stupid games, you'll win stupid prizes. I felt the anointing there. I don't know if you did, but I felt the anointing there. If you don't know how to choose your battles, it's going to cause you to lose time, joy, relationships, potential, purpose, and you're going to live a life beneath what God intended for you to have. Jesus said, I come that they might have life, not that they might have church, not that they might check off a bunch of boxes. He said, I came so that they could have life and have it more abundantly. But you'll never have the life that Jesus intends for you to have if you don't know how to choose your battles. Because if you don't know how to choose your battles, you will live a life of inconsistency. You will live a life of chaos. You will live a life of frustration. If you don't know how to choose your battles, it'll lower your quality of life. The second thing that happens when you don't know how to choose your battles is over time you develop a victim mentality. Did you know that it's possible to experience victories while at the same time developing the mindset of a victim? When we fight battles we shouldn't, it's usually because we're fighting based on how we feel, which means we're fighting over what other people have said or did rather than who we're called to be. Therefore, we end up focusing so much on our bad breaks that we justify our bad choices, and over time, we develop a victim mentality. Over time, we start to feel sorry for ourselves, and we accept certain choices and decisions that we know will lead to suffering. Let me show you this in the life of Samson. Judges chapter 15, verse 11. Samson replied, I only did to them what they did to me. Do you hear the immaturity in that statement? Mom, she touched me first. She was laughing at me first. She made fun of me first. I only did to her what she did to me. In essence, Samson was saying, I did this because they did that. He was fighting based on what they did, not who he was. He didn't take accountability for his actions because of the actions of others. So even though he walked away victorious from all these battles, over time he developed the mindset of a victim. He focused so much on his bad breaks that he justified his bad choices. And this victim mentality paralyzed him. It paralyzed him to the point that his hair was cut, his eyes were gouged out, and he was taken into captivity by the very people that he was called to conquer. There's nothing more paralyzing than a victim mentality. I know you've been through some stuff. I know people hurt you. I know that what they said and did was wrong. But you can't use your bad breaks as a reason to justify your bad choices. You can't allow someone else to be responsible for where you go from here. Yes, they made your journey harder than it had to be, but they don't have the type of influence that would allow them to dictate what happens next. You are the only one that can dictate what happens next. You are the only one that can dictate where you go from here. Take ownership. Take responsibility for where you are, because responsibility is the ability to respond. If I don't take responsibility for where I am, I can't respond and go where I want to go. If it's somebody else's fault, somebody else has to fix it. But if I take responsibility for my situation and my life, then I have the ability to respond, and I can move forward into what God has for me next. The third thing that happens when we don't choose our battles wisely is it keeps us distracted from what matters. One person said, choose your battles wisely, because if you fight them all, you'll be too tired to win the ones that matter. I honestly think that Samson had a good idea about what Delilah was doing. 3 separate times she asked him what the source of his strength was, and 3 separate times he lied. There was no stipulation that said Samson couldn't tell someone that he was under a Nazirite vow. If Samson trusted Delilah, he would have told her the truth from the very beginning. But he didn't trust her. Which begs the question, if he didn't trust her, why did Samson keep letting Delilah tie him up? I can think of one reason, but we're going to save that for a marriage sermon. Carrie did not like that joke, let me tell you. She did not. It's in the Bible, I can't help it. Listen, why do you keep letting people you don't trust tie you up? Tie up your mental energy, tie up your focus, tie up your attention, tie up your strength, tie up your resources. You know that they don't have good intentions. You know that they have an ulterior motive, and yet you keep getting entangled with them. You keep letting them tie you up. Why do you keep letting people you don't trust tie you up? Maybe it's because you're tired. In my opinion, Samson knew exactly what was going on. He was just too tired to deal with it. Have you ever avoided an issue that was right in front of your face because you were too tired to deal with it? You know that there's a conversation that you need to have. You know that there's a problem that has reoccurred and it's not going away. It's not fixing itself. And there's a conversation that you need to have, but you haven't had it because you're too tired to deal with it. You know your kids. It did not surprise you when the teacher called you at work, but you act like it did. He never does that at home. Oh, really? Never. Lies. Lies. You sit on a throne of lies. You know what's going on. You know your kids acting out and acting up. You know that there are red flags all over the place, but you haven't dealt with it because you're tired. You know you're broke, but rather than pulling up your banking app and seeing how broke you are, you just keep spending money and hoping the problem fixes itself. You don't want to see it for what it is because you're tired. There are issues that are right in front of your face, and you know what needs to be done. You know what needs to happen, but you haven't dealt with it because you're tired. And maybe the reason you're tired in the present is because of how you chose your battles in the past. Maybe the exhaustion you feel right now is the culmination of all the insignificant, irrelevant battles that you've chose to fight over the last 6 months, year, 5 years, 10 years. Maybe you have to change your pattern. Maybe starting today, you have to change how you choose your battles so that you'll have the strength to win the ones that actually matter. So you'll have the strength to speak up when the time comes for you to actually speak up. Before I conclude this sermon, I do want to give you just a couple common sense ways on how to choose your battles wisely. This is not going to be mysterious revelation. It's just straightforward stuff that you already know, but God sent me here to remind you of it. All right? Ready? Number one, consult with God. That sounds simple enough. It sounds easy, yet in the heat of the moment, it's very hard to do. When someone has ticked you off, when they've used their tall finger, when you're about to go off at the Optimist Club, it's really hard to think about praying. You want to punch somebody. You don't want to pray. But we would fare much better if we got in the habit of consulting with God about the battles that we're considering engaging in. Throughout the Old Testament, there were kings that consulted with God before they went to battle, and there were kings who didn't. Those who consulted with God always fared much better than those who didn't. So we have to learn in the heat of the moment not to act quickly out of our feelings and emotions, but take a moment and ask God if this is something that we should engage in, or if this is one of those times when He's going to work it out. And all we have to do is keep our blessed mouth shut. In Jesus' name. Do you know how many marital arguments I would have won if I could have shut up? I was right, and she knew I was right, but I kept talking until I was wrong. And it's not even fair. She's an introvert. She's better at being silent than I am. I'm an extrovert, so I just keep talking till I eventually mess up. And she's like, yeah, it was all your fault. You screwed up. Don't do that again. I would fare so much better in life in general if I didn't operate so much on my feelings and emotions, and I could collect myself enough to consult with God before I just entered the battlefield, before I stepped into the ring. Did you know a prize fighter only fights 2 or 3 times a year? And he makes between $2 to $5 million on average per fight? Which makes me think I need to step into the ring. I don't even care if I win. I'll let you punch me. But the reason that the prize fighter is selective about when he steps into the ring is not because he's incapable or weak. It's because he wants to know that every time he steps into the ring, what he walks away with is worth what he went through. And you have to be the same way. You have to consult with God so that when it does come time for you to speak up, for you to take a stand, for you to climb that mountain, what you walk away with will be worth what you went through. The second way that we choose our battles wisely is copy Jesus. Throughout His ministry, Jesus constantly walked away from the personal insults and accusations that other people threw at Him. They said He was a drunk. He just walked away. They said He was possessed by demons. He just walked away. They said He was a hypocrite. He just walked away. They said He was a fake and a fraud. Just walked away. See, that's real strength. When I don't have to prove myself to anyone. When I don't have to defend my character. If you know me, you know me. If you don't, you don't. But I don't have to respond to every accusation. I don't have to respond to every insult. I don't have to write a comment on Facebook telling you what I'm about. That's real strength. It's what Jesus embodied throughout His ministry. He knew what was worth His time and what wasn't. One man said, if you're a giraffe, don't argue with turtles. Don't come down and argue with turtles. Another man said, don't wrestle with the pig, because you'll both get dirty and he'll enjoy it. Sometimes we display real strength for our unwillingness to engage, especially when it's an insignificant, irrelevant battle. They would ridicule Jesus, and most of the time Jesus wouldn't even respond. But when he did respond, when he did speak up, he always fought on behalf of someone else. Jesus always fought for a purpose bigger than himself. When he flipped tables, picked up a whip and drove people out of the temple, it wasn't about him. It was about other people being taken advantage of. When Jesus fought, he always fought for a purpose bigger than himself. By comparison, for most of his life, Samson never fought for anyone but himself. It was always about what he wanted. It was always about what he desired. So if you want to choose your battles wisely, stop fighting over how you feel. Feelings are sporadic. They're inconsistent. That's why I can't stand when church people base their worship on how they feel. Anybody can feel gratitude to God when things are going well. There's nobody that's ever won the lottery that didn't have them a little praise break. It's easy to respond happy and joyfully when things are going according to plan. We're not supposed to operate by how we feel. We're supposed to have something more. We're supposed to have a guiding force that is beyond our sporadic, inconsistent feelings. Our feelings are not supposed to be our guide. If you fell out of love with your spouse, stick around. You'll fall back into it. You'll fall back out again. Because feelings are sporadic. If you feel good, great. You probably won't next week. There'll be a day where you don't feel great. You woke up feeling good this morning, or you woke up feeling bad. This is the inconsistency of life. It's going to change. One conversation can change your mood. One conversation can change how you feel for the better or for the worse, because feelings are sporadic. So you got to stop fighting based on how you feel, and you got to start fighting for something bigger than yourself. I show up when I don't want to, because I'm fighting for God's purpose and plan for my life. I try to be a good example when I feel like I've been cheated and taken advantage of, because I want to be a good example for my wife and children. I'm fighting for my family. I'm fighting for things bigger than myself, and it keeps me motivated. Some of you don't have a motivation problem. You have a motive problem. You keep doing things based on you, and so eventually your motivation runs out. But if your why becomes bigger than you, you can do whatever you have to do. I know this isn't super spiritual, but this is life, so I'm going to tell you anyway. You keep trying to take better care of yourself, but the reason you haven't been successful is because you're doing it for you. Because you want to look good on your profile picture on Facebook. Well, that's not deep enough to keep you going when it's 5 a.m. and you're supposed to be at the gym at 5:45. But now when you make your health about your children and being around for them and walking her down the aisle and making sure you hold your grandbabies and making sure you're around to make a positive impact on them, all of a sudden it's deeper. It's deeper than how you feel on any given morning, and it pushes you. I lost 60 pounds, not because I'm that disciplined. I lost 60 pounds because my why became big enough. Because the doctor told me you're going to feel bad for the rest of your life. And I said, bet. My God is bigger. And then when I had the motivation that it became about more than just that moment, more than an appearance, all of a sudden I could do it then. I could do it then because I wanted to be able to play with my kids in the yard. I wanted to be able to pass a baseball with Canyon. I wanted to be able to play basketball with Kinley. I wanted to be around, and I wanted to feel good, and I wanted to enjoy it. And when that became my why, it's not hard to get up at 5 anymore because my why's bigger. It's not hard to do it when I'm tired because my why's bigger. So you got to stop fighting based on how you feel. And you got to start fighting for something bigger than yourself. You know, if you're trying to make more money just to make more money, that won't stick. You'll get tired. Eventually, you'll think, I'll be well rested and poor. That's fine. I'm good. But if you're making more money to pay for your kids' college so that they can change a generational pattern that exists in your family, all of a sudden, your why's bigger. Your why's bigger than your circumstance, bigger than your situation, bigger than your battle, so you can get up in the morning and you can do what you need to do because you have the right why. You got to stop fighting for how you feel, and you got to start fighting over things that are bigger than yourself, just like Jesus did. Why did he carry that cross up the hill? Because his why was big enough. His why was you. It's you. He knew that this was the only way that he would ever be able to have a consistent relationship with you, because he knew that you would struggle with sin from time to time. He knew that you could never be justified in the eyes of God through your works. He knew this was the only way. And so thinking about you motivated him to carry that cross up the hill, to lay down on it, to let them pierce his hands and feet, to let them suspend him between heaven and earth, and to go through the most agonizing pain that anyone has ever experienced. Fight for something bigger than yourself, and you'll know exactly how to choose your battles. As the worship team comes, if you're here today, you can go ahead and stand to your feet. Stretch it out a little bit. If you're here today, maybe you're thinking throughout this sermon, man, I am not good at this. I open my mouth when I shouldn't. I speak when I should be silent. I give ultimatums when I should be in submission. I burn bridges. I walk off job sites. I hurt people that I'm not even upset with because I didn't realize that I'm projecting things internally onto the people around me. I've made a mess of stuff. My whole landscape just looks chaotic and messy, and I don't even know where to start to get it back together. You know, sometimes you can feel so broken. Your life can feel so broken that it's like, I want to try, but I don't even know where to start to put this back together. I don't even know where to start to have a good relationship with my kids. I don't even know where to start to repair my marriage. I don't even know where to start to get out of debt. I don't even know where to start. If that's you, I want you to know it's not too late. No matter how many dead-end roads you've walked down, no matter how many bad choices, no matter how many ill-advised decisions, no matter how much you've screwed up, no matter how much you've blown it, it is not too late to change the narrative of your story. How do I know that? Because the last mention we have of Samson is not in the book of Judges. It's in Hebrews chapter 11, a chapter known as the Hall of Faith. And among these mighty men of faith, you know who's listed? Samson. For most of his life, his story was a cautionary tale of what not to do. But as he stood between the pillars of the temple, and he cried out, "Oh God, remember me," he finally got it right. And his name is listed in the Hall of Faith to show us that as long as there's breath in your lungs, you can get it right too. No matter how old you are, no matter how much of a mess it is, no matter what has happened, you can get this right. And maybe the place you need to start is by coming to this altar and saying, "Oh Lord, remember me. Not my achievements, not my accomplishments. Remember me. In my suffering, in my distress, remember me. In my tears, in my brokenness, remember me." If you're here today and you're saved and you need God's counsel on how to choose your battles wisely, you need God's counsel in this area, I want you to take this moment and have a If you're here today and you're lost, I want you to know, just like every day that you're alive, Jesus is extending his hand towards you. And the universal question that you have to respond to is not, does Jesus love you? It's, do you love him? Heaven and hell comes down to who you know. Jesus will either say, well done, thou good and faithful servant, or he'll say, depart from me, I never knew you. So if you die and go to hell, the chief indictment against you won't be the drugs you did or the people you slept with. Don't you dare allow yourself to think that you've messed up so much that God's gave up on you. No, if you go to hell, the chief indictment against you will be that you gave up on God. He extended his hand, but you never reached back in return. So if you're here today and you're lost and you're ready to receive the gift of salvation, to confess your sins and believe on Jesus as your Lord and Savior, this altar is already filled with some people. So you're not going to pray alone. We're going to pray with you. But if you're here and you're lost and you want to know Jesus, would you come now? But whether you do it up here at the altar or you do it at your seat, let's all corporately take this moment to have a conversation with